So you just shifted timelines. You just quantum jumped. You just experienced an absolute transformation. What do you do next? I've created hundreds of activations and meditations on my channel. Sleep meditations designed so that you wake up the next day in another reality. The large focus of my podcast has been about creating ways for you to quantum jump into parallel realities, to use the quantum understanding of reality in order to shift more dramatically than ever before. People are experiencing the most amazing magical experiences when suddenly they find themselves in entirely different timelines or realities. And so you've just done this. Perhaps you've just listened to one of my activation videos. This is the absolute best video to listen to next in order to know what to do. Sometimes the most important part of the timeline shift is the period right after you shift and how you handle what happens. If you're watching this video, something's already changed. And I don't mean you stumbled across this by accident. You're here now because you have experienced it. That unmistakable sensation that reality itself has shifted around you. Maybe it happened during one of my activations. Maybe it was spontaneous. Or maybe you've been working with quantum jumping techniques and suddenly everything feels different. You might be feeling a bit disoriented right now. Like you're standing between two worlds. The old reality that no longer quite fits and the new one that you're not entirely sure how to navigate yet. That feeling, that's not confusion. That's confirmation. You've successfully shifted timelines and your consciousness is still catching up to your new reality. But here's what I need you to understand. The next 72 hours are absolutely critical. Not to scare you, but to prepare you, because most people, and I mean about 90% of people who experience genuine timeline shifts, end up snapping right back to their old reality within 3 days. Not because the shift wasn't real, but because they don't know how to hold the new frequency. I learned this the hard way. About 8 years ago, I had my first major conscious timeline shift. I've been working on shifting my reality where my YouTube channel had exploded with growth, where I was reaching millions of people with this work, and then it happened overnight. Everything changed. My subscriber count jumped, collaboration opportunities flooded in, speaking requests came in from around the world. But the thing was, I was not prepared for the energetic maintenance required. Within a week, I found myself making decisions from my old self, thinking thoughts that belonged to the previous version of Brian, who struggled to reach people, acting from scarcity instead of abundance. And slowly, I watched that beautiful new reality slip away because I didn't know how to be the person who belonged in that timeline. That is never going to happen to you, because by the end of this video, I promise you this, you'll know exactly how to navigate your new reality. You will understand how to maintain your timeline shift, how to make decisions from your future self, and most importantly, how to avoid the subtle traps that pull you back into your old patterns. We're going to cover everything from following your timeline's intuitive guidance system to dealing with the weird memory shifts that nobody talks about, to handling reality glitches that actually prove you're doing this right. If you're ready to learn to not just shift timelines, but how to stay in your new timeline and thrive there, let's dive in, because your new life is waiting and it's time to start living it. Here's what nobody tells you about timeline shifts. The biggest danger isn't failing to shift. It's losing the shift after you've already made it. And it happens for very specific, predictable reasons that we can absolutely prevent once you understand them. First, there's the momentum trap. Think of your old timeline like a massive freight train that's been moving in one direction for years, maybe decades. When you shift timelines, you have essentially jumped onto a completely different track. But that old train is still moving, and it's still exerting a gravitational pull on your consciousness. Your old patterns, your habitual thoughts, your automatic responses, they're all momentum from the previous timeline. And here's the tricky part: they feel normal. They feel like you. So when you wake up the morning after a major shift, and your mind starts running its old programs, I can't afford this. People like me don't get opportunities like that. This is too good to be true. It doesn't feel like sabotage. It feels like being realistic. But the real killer is what happens around hour 18 to 36 after your shift. This is the identity crisis moment. Your new reality starts presenting you with opportunities, situations, and possibilities that your old self never had access to. And suddenly, your mind goes, wait, who am I to have this? Who am I to be living this life? This is where most people panic and unconsciously choose familiarity over expansion. They're literally sabotaging amazing opportunities because small feels safer than being powerful. Let me give you the most common sabotage pattern I see within the first 72 hours. First, the validation spiral. You start seeking confirmation from people who knew your old self. Can you believe this is happening to me? But here's the problem. They're going to respond from the old timeline where you were stuck. Their doubt becomes your doubt. The second pattern is you start comparing your new reality to your old problem. Well, this is nice, but I still have this issue and that issue. You're essentially saying your new timeline isn't good enough because it hasn't solved every problem from your old timeline instantly. It is a timeline, which means a sequence of events that will occur, that will resolve every problem. When we lock into the ultimate timeline, this is a magical place. It is heaven on earth. It is living every moment passionately, joyously. It is the most powerful, wonderful thing to find your perfect timeline. You're attracting more than just a single event or experience. You're continuously living a life that just gets better and better and better. Another pattern is the worthless spiral. This is the big one. I don't deserve this. This is too good. Something bad is going to happen to balance this out. This is too good to be true. You literally argue for your limitations because your old identity can't accept the new reality. Why 72 hours? Because that's how long it takes for new timelines to start becoming energetically stable. Think of it like this. For the first 3 days, you're in a quantum superposition. You exist in both timelines simultaneously, and your choices, thoughts, and actions are literally determining which timeline becomes your dominant reality. During these 72 hours, every decision you make is either anchoring you deeper into your new timeline or pulling you back to your old one. There's no neutral. You're either moving forward or moving backward. So right now, let's do this quick reality check. I want you to honestly assess where you are. Now, signs that you're holding your new timeline or opportunities start to appear that match your shifted desires. You feel calm confidence rather than anxious excitement. You're making decisions quickly and trusting your intuition. Synchronicities are increasing, and you feel like a different person, and you're okay with that. And the signs that you're slipping back is that you're second-guessing the good things happening. You're asking others if they think you deserve your new reality. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're trying to solve old timeline problems with new timeline energy. You feel guilty about how easy things are becoming. If you recognize yourself in those slipping patterns, don't panic. Awareness is the first step to course correction. And the beautiful thing about understanding these patterns is that once you see them, You can't unsee them. You become immune to their pull. So now that you understand why people lose their shifts, let's talk about your new operating system. How to think, decide, and act as someone who belongs in this new timeline. Because everything is about to change, starting with how you process information and make decisions. The first thing you need to understand is logic will fail you in your new timeline. And I don't mean you should abandon critical thinking, but the logical frameworks that served you in your old reality are based on the limitations and rules of that old reality. When you step into this new reality, there are new rules, new physics. When you try to use old world logic to navigate new world possibilities, it's like trying to use a map of New York to navigate Tokyo. The streets don't match up. In your old timeline, maybe logic told you that building a successful business takes years of grinding, that finding your soulmate requires dating dozens of people, that financial abundance means working 80-hour weeks. But in your new timeline, those logical assumptions might be completely irrelevant. Maybe in this reality, success comes through aligned actions rather than force. Maybe love appears when you embody the vibration of the relationship you want. Maybe money flows through value creation rather than time trading. This is why you need to develop quantum guidance, your timeline-specific intuitive navigation system. We have merged you with your future self in most of my activations. And what happens is your future self steps into your body and you feel their presence. They become you and you become them. You begin to have new memories and an intuitive guidance system that is guiding you along this particular timeline. The best timeline shifts I have are also merging you with your future self. It's not the same as just regular intuition. Regular intuition is often based on pattern recognition from past experiences, but quantum guidance comes from your future self, the version of you who already exists in this new timeline and is literally guiding you toward the fastest path to full integration. Here's how to recognize that quantum guidance from your future self versus old world intuition. Old world intuition often comes with a story. It explains itself. I have a feeling I should call so-and-so because maybe she knows someone who could help with my business. Quantum guidance doesn't explain itself. It just says, call her now. No logical reason, no story, just a clear directive that feels absolutely right in your body. Old world intuition often comes with doubt. I think maybe I should do this, but I'm not sure. Quantum guidance comes with certainty. Even when it makes no logical sense, you just know. Your body knows. Your future self is reaching back and saying, this is the path. Timeline-specific hunches often feel slightly impossible or inconvenient. They ask you to do things that don't fit your current circumstances or identity. Like suddenly feeling compelled to apply for a position you're not qualified for, or feeling drawn to start a conversation with someone completely outside your usual social circle, or having an urge to book a trip to a place you've never considered visiting. Your old self would dismiss these impulses as unrealistic or random. Your new timeline self recognizes them as quantum breadcrumbs, leading you toward your fully realized reality. Let me give you a practical way to test this right now. This is a 5-minute decision test. Think of something you've been contemplating lately, maybe a decision you need to make, an action you've been considering, or an opportunity that's presented itself. Close your eyes for a moment. Take 3 deep breaths. Now imagine yourself 1 year from now, living fully in your optimal timeline. You're completely successful, completely fulfilled, completely aligned with your highest potential. From that place, from that version of yourself, what would you tell your current self to do about this situation? Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Just listen. What's the first thing that comes up? That voice, that knowing, that instant response. That's your quantum guidance system. That's your future self communicating through the quantum field to guide you toward your highest timeline. Now here's the test. If that guidance feels slightly uncomfortable, if it pushes you outside your comfort zone, it requires you to be a bigger version of yourself than you were yesterday. Then you know it's authentic quantum guidance. It feels safe and keeps you exactly where you are. It's probably your old timeline trying to maintain its grip. The key is learning to trust these impulses even when they don't make logical sense yet. Your future self can see the entire chessboard. Your current self can only see the next move. Trust the player who can see the whole game. This is your new navigation system. Logic becomes secondary to inner knowing. Planning becomes secondary to following quantum breadcrumbs. Control becomes secondary to trust. And this is exactly how you maintain momentum in your new timeline instead of falling back into old patterns. So now you need a daily system for staying clear about what you really are operating from. Because here's what happens. Your new timeline starts presenting you with opportunities and situations that didn't exist in your old reality, and it's easy to get confused about what's real and what's left over from your previous circumstances. I want you to start each day with a reality check protocol. Before you even get out of bed, ask yourself, what timeline am I waking up in today? Notice what feels different about your energy, your possibilities, your sense of what's available to you. Your new timeline has a different energetic signature than your old one. Learn to recognize it. Then throughout the day, keep asking your future self these specific questions. From my fully realized timeline, what would I focus on today? What would I prioritize? How would I handle this situation? What would I say yes to, and what would I decline? These aren't rhetorical questions. Pause and actually listen for the answers. Your future self is constantly broadcasting guidance, but most people are too busy managing their current circumstances to tune in. Now, I suggest that to accelerate your integration into this timeline, that every evening you think of, and if possible, write down 3 things. Writing down or putting them into your notes on your phone confirms this. First, what happened today that confirms I'm in my new timeline? Maybe it was an unexpected opportunity, a conversation that opened doors, or simply feeling more confident making decisions. Second, what old timeline thoughts or patterns showed up today, and how did I handle them? And third, what is my future self asking me to focus on tomorrow? This is not just reflection, it's actively programming your subconscious to recognize and reinforce your new reality while releasing attachment to old patterns. But watch out for these warning signs that you're slipping back into old assumptions. If you catch yourself saying things like, I can't afford that, when money has been flowing more easily, or people like me don't get opportunities like this when opportunities have been appearing, or this is too good to last when good things have been sustainable, stop immediately. These are old timeline thoughts trying to pull you backward. The moment you notice an old assumption, immediately ask, what would someone who belongs in my new timeline think about this situation? Then think that thought instead. You're literally rewiring your neural pathways to match your new reality. Here's something crucial that will accelerate your integration. Actively look for evidence of your shift. Your brain is wired to notice what confirms your existing beliefs. So if you're not consciously looking for proof that you're in a new timeline, you might miss the subtle signs that are everywhere. Start each day by asking, what evidence will I notice today that confirms I'm living in my new reality? Then actually look for it. Maybe it's a conversation that opens an unexpected door. Maybe it's money showing up in an unusual way. Maybe it's feeling more confident in situations that used to intimidate you. Or maybe it's people treating you differently in a way that matches your new energy. The evidence doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes the most powerful confirmations are when you're making a decision quickly and trusting it completely, or having someone compliment you on a quality that your old self never felt you possessed. Small evidence compounds into unshakable knowing on a day-to-day basis when you start building this up. Keep a running list of timeline shift evidence. Write down everything you notice, no matter how minor it seems. When you start documenting the proof, you realize how much has actually changed. And this strengthens your confidence in your new reality. Your brain starts actively searching for more evidence because you've trained it to notice what's working instead of what's missing. Here's where most people get timeline work completely wrong. They think shifting timelines is about wanting something different. But wanting keeps you in a state of lack, constantly reaching for something you don't have. In your new timeline, you don't want your reality, you are your reality. Necessity is different than wanting. Necessity says, this is who I am now. This is how I operate. This is my standard. When something becomes necessary, you don't negotiate with it. You don't question it. You simply organize your life around it. Think about breathing. You don't want to breathe. You don't hope to breathe. You don't try to breathe. Breathing is necessary, so it happens automatically. That's the energy you need to bring to your new timeline. It's not something you're trying to create. It's something that is. But here's the challenge. How do you create urgency around your new reality without falling into desperation? Because desperation will snap you right back to your old timeline. The difference is this. Desperation says, I need this to be happy. Necessity says, this is simply who I am. The identity shift is everything. You have to stop seeing yourself as someone who is trying to change and start seeing yourself as someone who has already changed. You're not becoming successful, you are successful, and you are simply allowing that success to manifest in physical reality. You're not trying to find love, you are love, and you're attracting a reflection of that. You're not working toward abundance, you are abundant, and you're letting abundance flow through you. This is a fundamental shift in how you relate to yourself and your capabilities. Your old self had to try to change. Your new self simply has to remember who they are. Here are the practical ways to raise that necessity daily. First, make decisions from your future self, not your current circumstances. When choosing what to eat, what to wear, how to spend your time, ask, what would the fully realized version of me choose? Then choose that, regardless of whether it feels comfortable for your old identity. Second, invest in your new reality before you can afford it, not recklessly, but strategically. Buy the clothes your new self would wear. Take the courses your new self would take. Join the communities your new self would be a part of. Act as if your new reality is so certain that investing in it is just logical preparation. Third, stop explaining or justifying your new reality to people who knew your old self. When someone questions your new choices or opportunities, you don't owe them an explanation of how you got this. Your new reality doesn't need to make sense to people operating from old paradigms. Fourth, raise your standards immediately. Not gradually, not when you feel ready, but right now. Your new timeline operates at a higher frequency, which means lower frequency situations, relationships, and opportunities will naturally feel wrong. Don't force yourself to accept things that don't match your new energy, just because your old self would have been grateful for them. And finally, make your new reality so non-negotiable that going backward literally isn't an option. Burn the bridges to your old limitations. Tell people about your new standards. Make commitments that require you to show up as your new self. Create so much momentum forward that sliding backward would be more uncomfortable than continuing to grow. Remember, Your new timeline is not something you're moving toward. It's something that you're already in. You're not trying to become something different. You're remembering who you actually are and letting that truth reorganize your external reality. Now, strategic thinking is important in your new timeline because the way you brainstorm and plan has to completely change. In your old timeline, you probably approached problems by looking at your current resources and limitations and trying to figure out what was possible from there. But that's backward thinking for someone who has shifted timelines. Your future self doesn't think from limitation to possibility. Your future self thinks from end result backward to the present moment. So when you're facing a challenge or opportunity, don't ask, how can I make this work with what I have? Ask, I'm living in the reality where this is already solved. How did I get there? This isn't fantasy or wishful thinking. This is quantum planning. You're accessing the timeline where the problem is already resolved and downloading the pathway that led to that resolution. Your future self already knows everything works out, so why not consult with that version of yourself? Here's how this looks practically. Let's say you want to launch a business, but you're thinking about all the reasons it won't work. No money, no connections, no experience. Old timeline thinking says, let me figure out how to slowly build these resources. New timeline thinking says, I'm living in the reality where this business is thriving and profitable. From that place, what were the key decisions and actions that made this inevitable? When you brainstorm from the end result, you start recognizing opportunities that were invisible from your limited perspective. Maybe you realize that the business doesn't need traditional funding because in your successful timeline, it grew organically through strategic partnerships. Maybe you see that your lack of experience was actually an advantage because it allowed you to approach the market with fresh perspectives that industry veterans couldn't see. This is timeline-specific opportunity recognition. Every timeline has different rules, different possibilities, different paths to success. What looks impossible in one timeline might be the most natural thing in the world in another timeline. Your job is to recognize which opportunities belong to your new timeline and which ones are left over from your old reality. The key distinction is that old timeline opportunities require you to be someone you're not. They feel like work, like struggle, like swimming upstream. New timeline opportunities require you to be exactly who you are, just more of it. They feel like play, like natural expression, like flowing downstream with tremendous power. When an opportunity appears, ask yourself, does this require me to shrink to fit it into my reality, or does it invite me to expand into my full potential? If it requires shrinking, it's probably an old timeline opportunity. If it invites an expansion, it's aligned with your new reality. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. It's the impossible made practical. Your old self looked at big dreams and said, that's impossible. So let me find something more realistic. Your new self looks at the same dreams and says, that's inevitable. So let me find the most practical pathway. The difference is that you're not trying to make impossible things happen. You're recognizing that in your new timeline, these things are not impossible. They are simply unrealized. There is a version of reality where everything you want already exists. Your job isn't to create it from nothing. It's to align with the timeline where it's already real. This completely changes how you approach challenges. Instead of asking, how do I make this impossible thing possible? You ask, what would make this inevitable outcome feel practical and natural? You're not forcing reality to bend to your will. You're discovering the path of least resistance to your desired outcome. When you think like your future self, brainstorming becomes less about generating ideas and more about remembering solutions. Less about creating possibilities and more about recognizing the opportunities that already exist in your expanded reality. You're not figuring out how to get what you want. You're remembering how you already got it. Now, one aspect is important is your mental archaeology. You need to clean out beliefs that no longer serve your new reality. Think of your mind like a house that you just moved into. The previous tenant left behind furniture that doesn't match your style, old food in the refrigerator that's gone bad, and outdated systems that don't work for how you want to live. You wouldn't keep using someone else's stuff just because it's already there, right? But that's exactly what most people do with their beliefs after shifting timelines. They keep operating from thoughts and assumptions that belong to their old reality, and then they wonder how their new timeline feels unstable or why they keep getting pulled backward. So you can identify holdover thoughts that don't belong in your new reality, paying attention to any belief that makes you feel small, limited, or like you need to prove yourself. Listen for thoughts that say, I can't, people like me don't, that's not realistic, or I don't deserve. These are archaeological artifacts from your old timeline, and they're contaminating your new reality. Also watch for beliefs about how long things take, how hard things should be, or how much you need to sacrifice to get what you want. Maybe in your old timeline, success required struggle, money required grinding, and love required settling. But those rules don't apply in your new reality. Keeping those beliefs is like trying to use cassette tapes in a streaming world. The technology doesn't match the reality. Here's your replacement protocol for outdated beliefs. The moment you catch an old storyline thought, don't fight it or try to positive think your way out of it. Simply ask, what does someone who belongs in my new timeline believe about this? Then consciously choose to think that thought instead. For example, if you catch yourself thinking, I can't afford this, immediately replace it with money flows to me easily when I'm aligned with my timeline. If you notice this opportunity is too good for someone like me, replace it with, I naturally attract opportunities that match my value and potential. You're not trying to convince yourself of these new beliefs. You're simply choosing to operate from them. Think of it like changing clothes. You don't argue with the old shirt about whether it fits. You just take it off and put on something that matches who you are now. Here's a quick mindset audit technique you can use daily. Set a timer for 2 minutes and ask yourself, what thoughts have I been thinking today that don't belong to someone living my desired reality? Just notice them without judgment and ask, what would someone who's already successful living in my new timeline think about today's situation instead? This is not perfection, it's about conscious creation. You're actively choosing which thoughts get to stay in your mental environment and which ones need to be updated. Your new timeline has a different operating system, and running old software will slow everything down. Now, opportunities, ideas, and impulses are going to show up that didn't exist in your old reality, and you need to know how to recognize them and act on them quickly. But here's the challenge. You need to distinguish between genuine inspiration and random impulse. Impulses come from your current circumstances, your emotions, or your old conditioning. They are usually reactive and often fade quickly. Inspiration comes from your future self reaching back through the quantum field to guide you toward your optimal timeline. Here's how to tell the difference. Genuine inspiration feels calm, clear, and certain, even if the action it's asking you to take feels big or uncomfortable. It doesn't come with a lot of mental chatter or justification. It feels right in your body. Impulses, on the other hand, usually come with urgency, emotional charge, or a need to escape something that you're currently experiencing. Inspiration also tends to expand your sense of what's possible, while impulses usually keep you operating within your current limitations. If an idea makes you feel bigger, more capable, more aligned with your potential, that's probably inspiration. It makes you feel reactive, scattered, or like you're running away from something, that's probably impulse. Now here's what I call the 24-hour inspiration rule. When genuine inspiration strikes, you have about 24 hours to take some kind of action on it, or the energy starts to dissipate. This doesn't mean you have to complete the entire project in 24 hours, but you need to take one concrete step that demonstrates to the universe that you're serious about following this guidance. Maybe the inspiration is to start a podcast, and obviously you can't launch a full podcast in 24 hours, But you could research equipment, outline your first episode, or even just create a voice memo describing your vision. The key is moving from receiving the inspiration to acting on it within the 24-hour window. I see people get amazing downloads about what they should do next, and then they spend weeks thinking about it, planning it, researching it, asking other people's opinions about it. By the time they're ready to act, the inspiration has moved on to someone else who is willing to trust it immediately. The biggest resistance you will face is the "but that's not how I usually" response. Your inspiration might ask you to reach out to someone you've never met, apply for something you're not qualified for, or take action in a way that doesn't match your usual approach. Your old self will immediately say, "But that's not how I usually do things." Perfect. That's exactly the point. Your usual way of doing things got you your old timeline. Your new timeline requires new ways of operating. When inspiration asks you to do something that feels outside your normal patterns, that's confirmation that it's authentic guidance towards your expanded reality. The key is to act before you feel ready, before you understand how it will work out, before you can explain it logically to other people. Your future self can see the whole picture. Your current self just needs to trust and take the next step. There's something nobody tells you about timeline shifting. Your new reality is going to require a braver version of you. Not because life becomes more dangerous, but because your expanded possibilities will consistently ask you to show up as someone bigger than who you used to be. In your old timeline, you could play small and still function. You could avoid risks, stay in your comfort zone, and maintain the status quo. But your new timeline doesn't have a comfort zone that matches your old limitations. The opportunities, relationships, and experiences available to you now require you to embody your full potential, not hide from it. This means courage isn't just helpful in your new timeline, it's essential. But here's what most people get wrong about courage. They think courage is a feeling you have to wait for, like motivation or inspiration. They think brave people don't feel fear, or that you need to feel confident before you take bold action. But courage is actually a practice, not a feeling. Courage is doing what your future self would do regardless of how your current self feels about it. Courage is choosing expansion over safety, truth over comfort, possibility over predictability. You don't have to feel brave to act bravely. Your future self, the version of you who is fully integrated into this new timeline, already knows how this story ends. They know you're capable of everything your new reality is asking of you. They know the risks aren't actually risky. They know the challenges are actually opportunities. They know what looks scary from your current perspective is actually perfectly safe from the bigger picture. So when you need courage, don't try to generate it from your current circumstances. Borrow it from your future self. Ask, what would the version of me who's already successfully living this reality do in this situation? Then do that, even if your current self doesn't feel ready. Here's your decision framework for cultivating courage daily. When you're facing a choice between safe option and the growth option, between the familiar path and the expansion path, between what your old self would choose and what your new self would choose, always ask, what would my future self do? Then do that. This isn't about being reckless or making decisions that genuinely put you in danger. It's about recognizing that most of what feels risky is actually just unfamiliar, and most of what feels scary is actually just outside your old comfort zone. Your new timeline is offering you opportunities to be seen, to make an impact, to step into leadership, to express your full creative potential, to experience love and abundance at levels you didn't know were possible. None of these opportunities will feel comfortable to your old identity. They're supposed to stretch you into the bigger version of yourself. Remember, your new timeline didn't choose you by accident. You're not being offered opportunities you can't handle or experiences you're not ready for. The universe doesn't make mistakes. It's showing up in your reality you're capable of rising to meet it. The courage you need isn't something you have to develop from scratch. It's already there, embedded in your future self, waiting for you to access it. Every time you choose growth over safety, you're not just building courage, you're remembering who you actually are. Now, something might be happening right now that requires you to stay absolutely calm. Reality glitches. After a genuine timeline shift, you might notice things that seem impossible. Objects appearing in your space that weren't there before. Objects disappearing. Conversations that people remember differently than you do. Physical changes in your environment that seem to have happened overnight. Even changes in your reflection that you can't explain. This is normal. This is what happens when you successfully shift from one timeline to another. The new reality is literally integrating around you, and sometimes that process is visible. Here's what's critical: do not freak out. Do not overreact. There's no need to share every single shift that you encounter with your friends. Do not start questioning your sanity or trying to figure out how these things are logically possible. Your reaction in these moments can either stabilize your new timeline or disrupt it entirely. When reality glitches occur, your old self wants to reject them, analyze them, or panic about them. But panic is low frequency, and it actually can snap you back to your previous timeline where these anomalies don't exist. Your job is to accept what's happening with calm curiosity rather than fear or disbelief. If you notice an object in your space that you don't remember acquiring, simply think interesting and continue with your day. If people remember events differently than you do, don't argue with them. Just notice that you're experiencing different versions of the same timeline. Take it as confirmation. If your physical environment seems to have shifted, acknowledge it without drama. This is a good thing. The key phrase to remember is, "This is how reality works in my new timeline." Not, "This is impossible," or not, "I must be going crazy." But this is normal for where I am now. Your acceptance of these reality shifts actually helps them stabilize instead of creating resistance that pulls you backward. You have moved to a new country where the customs are different. You don't reject the new customs because they're unfamiliar. You adapt to them because that's how things work in this new place. Same principle applies to your new timeline. These glitches are actually confirmation that your shift was successful and is integrating properly. They're not problems to solve, they're evidence that you're operating in an expanded reality with more fluid rules than your old timeline had. Stay calm, stay curious, and let the new reality settle around you. The more natural you are with these anomalies, the more stable your new timeline becomes. Your acceptance is what allows this shift to complete itself without snapping back to your old limitations. Remember, you asked for a new reality. When it shows up, even in ways that surprise you, your job is to welcome it, not resist it. The weird is becoming wonderful because you're finally living in the timeline you were meant to experience. Now, there's something that might be happening to you that's completely normal but feels completely strange. Your memories are changing. Not in a dramatic forgetting who you are way, but in subtle shifts that make parts of your past feel different than they used to feel. You might notice how certain memories that used to feel painful or traumatic now feel neutral or even positive. You might remember conversations differently or realize that situations you thought went badly actually led to good outcomes. You might find that limiting beliefs you've carried for years suddenly feel foreign, like they belong to someone else. This is timeline memory integration, and it's one of the most misunderstood aspects of quantum shifting. Here's what's actually happening. When you shift timelines, you're not just changing your future, you're aligning with a version of the past that supports your new reality. Think of it this way. There are infinite versions of your past, just like there are infinite versions of your future. The memories you carried in your old timeline were the versions of your past that made sense with your old limitations and patterns. But those memories don't serve your new reality, so your consciousness naturally begins to access memories that are more aligned with your expanded potential. This doesn't mean your past didn't happen or that you're losing your mind. It means you're gaining access to a more empowering interpretation of the same events. In most cases, unless you're doing a revision, the facts of your past remain the same, but your relationship to those facts shifts to support your new timeline. Maybe you remember your childhood as more supportive than you used to, or you recall having more confidence in situations where you previously remembered feeling insecure. Maybe past failures now feel like valuable learning experiences rather than painful setbacks, or past relationships now seem like perfect preparation for what you have now rather than time wasted. The most important thing is to work with these memory shifts rather than against them. Don't try to hold on to painful or limiting interpretations of your past because they feel familiar. If your memory is offering you a more empowering version of your story, accept it. If your past is reorganizing itself to support your new reality, let it. This is actually incredibly liberating once you understand what's happening. You're not stuck with one fixed version of your personal history. Your past is not a chain that binds you to certain limitations or patterns. You don't even know if your past really happened now. Your memory is a living, dynamic aspect of your consciousness that can evolve to serve your highest timeline. Some people resist this because they think changing how they remember their past is somehow dishonest or delusional. But consider this, you've already been living with one interpretation of your past, and that interpretation has been shaping your present reality. If that interpretation has been limiting your potential, why wouldn't you want to access a more empowering version? Your past exists to serve your present, not to imprison it. Your memories exist to support your growth, not to keep you stuck in old patterns. When your timeline shifts, everything shifts, including your relationship to your personal history. This is part of the quantum nature of consciousness. The past, present, and future are all fluid from the perspective of your expanded awareness. You're not changing what happened, you're changing what it means, and that changes everything about how it affects your current reality. Embrace these memory shifts. Welcome the new interpretation of your past. Let your personal history reorganize itself to support the magnificent reality you're creating. Now, there are specific practices that will keep you anchored in your new timeline for the next 30 days while it becomes your permanent reality. Think of this as your timeline maintenance system. Because shifting is just the beginning, integration is where the magic becomes permanent. Week 1 is all about immediate stabilization. Your new timeline is still fragile during these first 7 days, so your focus needs to be on consistent reinforcement. Every morning before you even check your phone, spend a couple of minutes asking your future self, what does someone living successfully in this timeline focus on today? Then organize your day around that guidance, not around your old habits or other people's expectations. During week 1, make at least one decision every day that your old self wouldn't make. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Maybe it's wearing something that makes you feel more confident, or speaking up in a situation where you'd usually stay quiet, or choosing the higher quality option instead of the cheaper one. You're training your nervous system to feel comfortable operating as your expanded self. Also in week 1, eliminate or minimize contact with anything that reinforces your old timeline identity. This means avoiding people who only know you as your previous version and want to keep you there. Avoiding media that makes you feel small or limited, and avoiding environments that trigger your old patterns. You're not running away from your past, you're protecting your emerging future, and it's only temporary. It will feel more natural after the first few days. And let's talk about pendulums. These are energetic structures that feed off your attention and emotion, and they're specifically designed to pull you back into your old timeline. After a shift, these pendulums become aggressive because they're losing their energy source, you. Pendulums can show up as people who suddenly need your help with their drama right after your shift. News stories that trigger fear or anger, old problems that resurface demanding your attention, or even well-meaning friends and family who start questioning your new choices and trying to talk you back into being realistic. These aren't random occurrences. When you shift timelines, you leave behind energy systems that were feeding off your old patterns, and they will attempt to recapture your attention to pull you back. The key is recognizing them for what they are. Not real problems that need solving, but energy parasites trying to hook you back into your previous reality. Your defense against pendulums is simple. Don't feed them your emotional energy. When old drama tries to resurface, observe it without getting emotionally involved. When people try to convince you that your new reality isn't sustainable, listen politely, but don't argue or try to convince them otherwise. When fear-based media tries to capture your attention, simply turn it off. When you're watching TV or listening to the radio and you're told about terrible things happening in the world, about tariffs or terror attacks or migrants or whatever it is, all of that is designed to pull you away. If it's true or not, it doesn't matter in this moment of your shift. Remember, the pendulums can only affect you if you give them your attention and emotional reaction. The moment you stop feeding them, they lose their power over you and move on to find energy elsewhere. Now let's address something that might be happening in your relationships right now. It can feel confusing or even painful. After a timeline shift, you naturally lose some friends and gain others. This is not a side effect of your shift. It's actually proof that your shift is working. Every relationship exists at a certain frequency. When you shift timelines, your frequency changes, and some relationships that were based on your old energy signature will no longer be a vibrational match. This doesn't mean these people are bad or that you've done something wrong. It simply means you're operating on different wavelengths now. You might notice that conversations with certain friends feel forced or draining when they used to feel natural. Maybe people who used to support your dreams now seem skeptical or dismissive. Perhaps friends who bonded with you over complaining or struggling now seem uninterested when you're not participating in those old patterns anymore. Don't try to force these relationships to work or lower your vibration to maintain them. If someone was only compatible with your limited version, they're not meant to be part of your expanded reality. Release them with love and trust that this creates space for relationships that match your new frequency. At the same time, you'll start attracting people who resonate with your new energy. These new connections often happen in unexpected ways and feel effortless from the beginning. Pay attention to who shows up in your life during this integration. These are likely your new timeline people who are here to support your continued growth and expansion. Weeks 2 through 4 are about building new timeline habits. Your old timeline had specific routines, thought patterns, and ways of being that kept you locked in that reality. Your new timeline needs different habits that support your expanded possibilities. Start with your morning routine. How does someone living your desired reality start their day? Maybe they meditate, maybe they exercise, maybe they spend time visualizing their goals, maybe they journal with their future self. Whatever it is, start doing it consistently. Your morning routine sets the energetic tone for your entire day. Change your environmental cues. Update your space to reflect your new identity. This might mean artwork, new books, new clothes, or simply rearranging things to feel fresh and aligned. Your environment should remind you of who you're becoming, not who you used to be. Most importantly, start making bigger decisions from your new identity. During weeks 2 through 4, you should be saying yes to opportunities that stretch you, setting boundaries that honor your new standards, and taking actions that demonstrate you believe in your expanded reality. Through this entire 30-day period, schedule monthly check-ins with your future self. Set aside 20 minutes each month to ask, how am I doing with this integration? What adjustments do I need to make? What is my future self most excited about that's coming next? This is not just reflection, it's course correction based on guidance from the version of you who has successfully completed this transition. But watch out for those red flags that signal timeline slippage. If you start making decisions based on fear instead of excitement, if you find yourself justifying why you can't have what you want, if you stop taking inspired action and fall back into old routines, if you start seeking validation from people who represent your old reality, these are warning signs that you're losing your new timeline. Here's your emergency protocol for maintaining your shift when you feel yourself slipping. First, immediately ask, what would my future self do right now? And do that thing, even if it feels uncomfortable. Second, make one decision today that demonstrates you believe in your new reality. And third, remove yourself from any environment or conversation that's reinforcing your old limitations. And fourth, spend 10 minutes seeing yourself successfully living in your new timeline until it feels real again. Remember, integration isn't a one-time event, it's an ongoing practice. Your new timeline becomes permanent not because you shifted once, but because you consistently chose to operate from your expanded identity until that becomes your natural way of being. So say these affirmations with me to reprogram your subconscious mind, to make this transition into your perfect timeline an unconscious action. Say this with me. I have successfully shifted timelines and I belong in this new reality. I am not becoming successful. I am successful and allowing it to manifest. I am not trying to change. I have already changed and I embody my new identity naturally. My new timeline chose me because I am ready and capable of everything it offers. I operate from my future self's wisdom and confidence in every moment. I trust my quantum guidance system completely and act on inspiration immediately. My future self guides me perfectly through the quantum field toward my highest timeline. Logic serves my intuition, not the other way around. I follow my inner knowing. When inspiration strikes, I act within 24 hours, and the universe supports my speed. I think like my future self, planning from the end result backward to now. I am anchored securely in my new timeline, and nothing can pull me backward. Every decision I make comes from my expanded identity, not my old limitations. I recognize old timeline thoughts immediately and replace them with new timeline beliefs. My new reality is non-negotiable. This is who I am now. I maintain my timeline shift through consistent choices aligned with my highest potential. I have all the courage I need because my future self has already walked this path. I choose growth over safety and expansion over comfort in every situation. What feels scary to my old self is perfectly natural to my new timeline persona. I embrace opportunities that stretch me into the bigger version of myself. My new timeline requires my full potential, and I rise to meet every challenge. My past reorganizes itself to support my new reality and highest timeline. I welcome empowering interpretations of my history and release limiting stories. My memories serve my present growth, not my past limitations. I am not bound by one fixed version of my personal history. My past is my foundation, not my prison, and foundations can be renovated. I accept reality glitches with calm curiosity. This is how my new timeline works. When weird things happen, I think this is normal for where I am now. I stay grounded while embracing the magic and synchronicities of my new reality. My acceptance of unusual experiences stabilizes my timeline shift. I welcome my new reality in whatever form it chooses to appear. I actively notice evidence of my timeline shift every single day. Everything I observe confirms that I am living successfully in my new reality. My brain automatically searches for proof that my shift is real and working. Small evidence compounds into unshakable knowing of my new timeline. I document my transformation and celebrate every sign of my expanded reality. I recognize pendulums immediately and refuse to feed them energy. I observe old drama without emotional involvement and stay focused on my new reality. I release relationships that no longer match my frequency with love and gratitude. I attract people who resonate with my new energy and support my continued expansion. I protect my new timeline like my life depends on it, because it does. I start each day asking my future self what to focus on and follow that guidance. I make at least one decision daily that my old self wouldn't have made. I organize my environment to reflect my new identity and support my growth. I take inspired action immediately when my future self provides direction. I check in with my future self regularly and adjust my path based on their wisdom. When I feel myself slipping, I immediately ask, what would my future self do? I make decisions that demonstrate my belief in my new reality without delay. I remove myself from environments that reinforce my old limitations. I visualize my new timeline until it feels completely real and natural again. I course correct instantly because my new reality is my only acceptable option. My timeline shift is complete and permanent. I am fully integrated into my new reality. I live as proof that reality is malleable and limitations are optional. My transformation inspires others to step into their own highest timelines. I am exactly where I belong, living the life I always meant to experience. My new life has begun, and I embrace it with complete confidence and joy. So here we are. You've shifted timelines. You understand why people lose their shifts, and you now have a complete operating system for not just maintaining your new reality, but thriving in it. But knowledge without action is just entertainment, so let me give you the 3 most critical steps. First, choose your new identity today, not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready, but right now. Stop being someone who's trying to change and start being someone who has already changed. Every decision you make from this moment forward should come from that future version of yourself who's already living the life you want. Second, follow your quantum guidance immediately when it appears. Stop overthinking, stop seeking other people's opinions, stop waiting for perfect conditions. When your future self gives you direction through inspiration, hunches, or opportunities, act within 24 hours. The universe rewards speed of implementation. Third, protect your new timeline like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. This is your chance to live the reality you've always known was possible. Don't let other people's limitations, your own old patterns, or fear of the unknown pull you back into a life that's smaller than what you're capable of. I want you to know something. I've been doing this work for over a decade. I've worked with thousands of people, and I've seen ordinary individuals create extraordinary realities when they understand these principles and apply them consistently. You're not different. You're not special. And that's actually the good news. What works for them will work for you if you're willing to operate from your new identity instead of your old limitations. The transformation you're experiencing is not just about you. When you successfully integrate into your optimal timeline, you become a demonstration of what's possible for everyone around you. You become proof that reality is malleable, that limitations are optional, and that anyone can create the life they truly want. I want to hear about your experiences with this integration process. Write down in the comments, I have integrated, so I know that you at least got this far. And leave a comment below about what shifts you're noticing, what challenges you're facing, and what successes you're experiencing. Let's all join together in responding to these comments, pushing people along, guiding them, inspiring them to keep going on your new timeline. You're in it. Just keep stepping forward, one step at a time. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to stay committed to their own timeline shift. And if you find this valuable, make sure you're subscribed. I'm always releasing new activations and meditations and teachings to help you shift into your perfect timeline. Right now in this moment, your new life is waiting for you to claim it. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more confident, not when conditions are perfect, but right now. You've done the hard part. You've shifted an entire timeline universe. Now comes the joy of living in the reality that you created. Your future self is cheering you on. Your optimal timeline is ready for you, and everything you need to thrive in this reality is already within you. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.